Thank you,
Jason, do
Tom.
you want to introduce yourself? Because I think this is the first time you guys are speaking too, right?
Sure. Yeah, Tom. So I manage the CRM practice at LBMC Technology Solutions. As Jonathan said, I'm based out of our Nashville, Tennessee office. I've been working in CRM for about 15 years. If it's been a mainstream CRM, I've been certified on it. Is kind of the way to think of it. I started with ACT about 15 years ago. Supported a large real estate office that had about 80 to 100 agents in that office. It was more of a commercial operation, and that's how I kind of got my feet wet in the industry, and I've been doing it ever since. Worked with Sugar, worked with Salesforce, of course Dynamics is what I'm going to show you today, and a few others in between. So it's always fun to work with clients in different industries, and kind of learn how their business operates, how we can help them. So it's pretty neat. Monotony would be my worst enemy. So I couldn't do a job where it was the same thing every day. So this is a chance to kind of work with people in all sorts of different industries, and meet all sorts of different challenges and things. So I enjoy it. So look forward to hearing what we can do for you as well.
Great.
Yeah, and Tom, so I'm an account executive here, sort of transitioning into more of a consultant role on the CRM practice, but been doing this for a little over 6 years now. So, we do appreciate the time this morning, and I'm going to keep the PowerPoint slides brief. I was just really going to set an agenda, which we've already taken the number one bullet off there, so that's good. I wanted to recap just what we had discussed with Mike in our last conversation to make sure we understood the requirements correctly, and then we'll spend the majority of the time in the live demo, right? So we'll dive right into that after that. Anything that you all were hoping to do outside of just sort of this high level agenda today?
No, that looks good.
We should be good to go. So again, we took care of that. Really heard from Mike, there's essentially like 3 areas of need right now. So you're looking for a solution for the biz dev team to be able to manage their opportunities and their activities, track their goals. You also have a facilities management type of a requirement, track bed counts at facilities and the fill rate and what types of patients are in the facility, and, get out of the Excel file that you're currently using today to manage all of that data. And then there's also an onboarding process for whenever you do, the biz dev team does, sign up a new facility, right, to onboard them and go through that process, which I believe now is done in Monday. But, to be able to have all this stuff into one, single system, obviously there's some value there. And then the third component we heard was, a scheduling tool for the providers that are actually going to these facilities, which we had actually sort of gone through some preliminary demonstrations with Rick a while back. I think I recorded that now that I think of it, so I maybe could share that with you guys, but something that you all wanted to take a look at some point in time. So, for today's sake, we're really going to be focusing on the CRM component of this, not necessarily the scheduling component of this. And just pointing out that, we are your Sage Intact partner, so we work with you today. So we've got some benefits there, and we've done integrations with Sage and CRM and other systems. And in fact, we're even, I think, exploring a data analytics solution with you all as well. So, just some other opportunities that we're synchronizing with your organization as a sort of a technology partner, which I think is exciting. Anything, in addition to those sort of 3 initial bullet points that, you all would add in as far as what you're looking for out of some solutions, as what we're related to today?
Yeah, looks good to me.
Cool. Jason, should queue you up for your demo, sir. I'll let you take it away from there. I'll stop sharing.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jonathan. So let me show my desktop here, make sure everybody can see okay. Does everybody see a little page that says good morning at the top left? Everybody see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So yeah, just as Jonathan said, he's actually transitioning to a consulting role on my team. So we're excited to have Jonathan joining us here shortly. So he just recently made that transition there. I'm a little nervous though. He's like my best account executive. So we have some account executives sort of fill his shoes. There's some big shoes. So as Jonathan said, we'll focus mainly on the sales engagement aspect of this, but I do have a few of these screens queued up to show you what I'm going to call it the facility management functionality that we might leverage in here as part of the service operations piece. I have the schedule board and the ability to kind of show you what it might look like to create an appointment and view that and assign that on the schedule board and just take a quick look at that. We'll spend most of our time on the sales side, but I wanted to give you a chance to see that too, early on. First off, I begin all of my demonstrations by sort of explaining the environment that you're looking at here. So with Microsoft 365, you're really investing in a platform, and I'm looking at my notes. I think you guys are leveraging a few applications already in Microsoft 365, and I plan on showing a few of the tie-ins with, for example, like Microsoft Teams, with Outlook. We'll take a look at the mobile app. We can talk about a few of the other applications, but in all, Dynamics 365, when you license this, it just becomes another application, right alongside all those other Microsoft 365 applications you're already using. So if this screen looks familiar at all, when most users log in, if you're using Office 365, they might use Outlook for Web, or they might use Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, and so forth, right? You may use Teams locally, and I'll show you here shortly how you can take a record that for a particular account or customer and be able to view and actually track that page, if you will, for that record in Teams, which is neat. And then of course, SharePoint, if you're leveraging SharePoint to store documents, for example, or really any other use case that SharePoint focuses on. SharePoint has a connector for Dynamics as well, and a lot of clients like to use SharePoint to store documentation that they're uploading to Dynamics CRM here. They like to be able to store those documents in SharePoint, so that's makes it a little easier for non-CRM users maybe to access some of those documents. But it also helps with storage, because SharePoint storage is a lot cheaper to purchase and maintain than the dynamic storage, so that helps. So the experience for an individual user, when they're ready to log in, they can log in a couple different ways, of course. We support any browser, so we support any of the major browsers. Let me rephrase. Obviously, Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Safari. If you have any Mac users, that's not a problem. From a mobile device, there's a free, mobile app. It comes with the license, right? You have access to a mobile app for Android and or iOS, of course. So if you have users that are, out in the field, which obviously, I'm not sure if we're planning on extending much of this to the actual, technicians and physicians and folks that would be going out into the facilities. But if for some reason we had folks that did need, mobile access, we can certainly support that, and that's something that we could certainly configure for you. Now, so when users log in, most would be taken to a particular home page. This is can be designated by the user. But before we dive too far into the application, I want to focus on a specific strong point with Dynamics 365, or with Microsoft 365 actually, and that's its app architecture. So this is something that really is unique to Dynamics. It's not something that the other competition does, maybe one or two, and they probably don't do it as well. But what I'm going to point out here is, if you see where it says Sales Hub here, I'm going to click on this for a moment to show you what I mean. So what you're looking at here, these are all part of Dynamics 365. Okay, this is not separate software that you have to buy or license per se, depending on what it is. Like there is sometimes additional licensing fee, but think of these as both core functionality of Dynamics, but then in addition to that, there are some additional apps in here to do things such as project service automation, or you have the omni-channel for customer service and things like that. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is that when we deploy Dynamics 365 these days, we deploy it based on your user roles and teams, right? So it used to be a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, right? You would build an application or configure an application or CRM that had to support every different department's needs, right, or team's needs. And that can become a bit of a risk to user adoption, right? Because these users were having to look at things and view data that didn't really pertain to them, or they were having to interact with the application in such a way that really wasn't designed specifically for their use case. So it felt a little disjointed for them, and you ended up with a lot of adoption issues. So Microsoft, with this app architecture that they developed now, again, it sits on top of what they call their Dataverse or Common Data Service, if you've ever heard that term before. But what it allows us to do is provide a unique experience to each group of users or team of users, okay? Great example of that would be over here on the right. So we can see, hello, welcome to the demo. So
Who joined?
It allows us to do it.
Was that you,
No
Mike?
worries.
Me, my audio wasn't working well. Thanks, guys. Sorry. Keep going.
No problem. So what this allows us to do is, create applications on top in Dynamics 365, but that perform specific roles. Okay. For example, we're talking about sales, so we're going to spend a lot of time this morning looking at the Sales Hub. Okay. The Sales Hub is the sales engagement app, right? Now this is just sort of the out-of-the-box app. This can be, again, customized and configured just like anything else. So it's fully customized. Well, it's just sort of like a starting point, kind of out of the box app that you can begin with, and then you can kind of customize it and tailor it from there. So we'll take a look at Sales Hub today. But then as another example, if you look at just above that, I created, I labeled it an app, facility management, right? So this would maybe be an example of an app that we would use in your case for your operations folks. Maybe they're, that's where they handle their scheduling, and all of the technicians and physician resources would all be, accessible in that facility management app, right? So that's what they would do, sort of the heavy lifting with the operations. So we'll take a quick glance at that as well. But I wanted to point out that, from a security standpoint and from a user experience standpoint, we can define each of those, for each, user role. And you can have as many apps as you want. So if you had somebody that was, or a group that was responsible for onboarding, maybe you had an app that was the onboarding app, right? So, your onboarding team would use that. They're all part of the same database, right? The same underlying database. So they can share data back and forth. So if I'm looking at, an account for a facility in the Sales Hub, that same account, is viewable to folks that are using facility management, right? It's the same record. So that's sort of the beauty of it, is we can create different user experiences based on this app architecture. So definitely a big benefit, and definitely we've seen a lot of benefit when it comes to fighting user adoption. Definite help there. So I'll get off that soapbox. So we'll take a look at the Sales Hub. I'm going to go ahead and close this. So the Sales Hub is pretty straightforward. Most folks find that this interface is pretty intuitive, easy to use. Your left-hand side is all your navigational elements there, so this is how you get around. And then on the top nav bar at the top, you have some inter-app navigation here where you can switch between apps if you have the permissions to do so. And then over on the right, you can see things like we have a global search that allows us to search the entire database. So if I wanted to say, the village, so it would do a quick search of account records. So this is an example of a facility that had a family member that lived here. So you can see, I quickly pulled up the account records, the account record for the village at Bellevue, and then any contacts that are related to that particular facility. So, and that, whether it be the administrator of the facility or even a couple of residents. These are, Bertie and Nancy are both residents. So I can quickly see, get a snapshot of that. Now, this can also pull up any relevant emails, notes, and activity, regarding this, whatever the search criteria is. So if I typed in the village, if I enabled it to do so, it would have pulled up all that related data as well. We call it relevant search. It's just not enabled yet in this environment. So very powerful search, right? So It can even, search through email content, which is, in my opinion, extremely helpful because, as you can imagine, you're going to be sort of amassing and storing large amounts of email history, I would imagine, because that's a big value is to capture that communication history. We'll take a look at that here in a minute. But, being able to search that email history globally like this is really helpful. So in addition to that, we've got the ability to do what we call an advanced find or query. It's a very powerful query tool. It allows you to create, complex multi, criteria queries to find and locate specific data. And then you can save those as what we call a view, which are basically, filtered lists of records that you can just bring up at any time. Okay. So taking a look from a sales perspective, the experience, most of the time we're going to have them land on what we call a dashboard. Of course, I'm sure you've probably experienced with dashboards. So this is just a quick example of the out-of-the-box dashboards that are, part of every environment we would implement. However, basically every implementation we do, we typically will deliver at least 2 dashboards. The sort of a sales or account executive level dashboard that's meant, for the sales team, but then also more of an executive and manager level dashboard. So typically we'll deploy 2. The manager level dashboard is not actually, out of the box. It's something that we would create after, speaking with leadership and kind of getting an idea of what they want there. But it would obviously, look over all of the sales teams as a whole, right? So typically on a dashboard, and this is a dashboard, as you can, as I'm sure you probably experienced, is sort of a place that aggregates data throughout the system. So in this case, it's showing a user their activities they need to complete. It's showing them open opportunities that they may be working on, or open leads, right? So in Dynamics 365, just to give you a little bit of some terminology to remember, which some of this may be familiar to you, a lead is sort of, it's prospective new business, right? But it's not qualified. So the way to think of it is it's unqualified new business. That's how, in terms of the sort of the standard behavior or the out-of-the-box behavior of CRM, that's meant to be like a person, someone that at a facility that you're trying to get into, right? So maybe you're speaking with Deborah about possibly providing services to her facility. So your interaction at the lead stage is with an individual, with a person. And then once you progress and qualify that lead, I'm going to go through this in a minute, so bear with me. So once you, speak with Deborah and have some conversations with her, you would be able to qualify that lead into an actual business opportunity. And then you would qualify that into an actual business opportunity, right? Where the team would, go through complete the sales cycle or the engagement, if you will. And then we could talk about onboarding after that. So let me jump into my list of leads here. So as a user, if I wanted to begin working on my leads, I could have clicked on one from that dashboard I showed you just a moment ago. Or maybe I want to look at a list of my, a complete list of my leads, or look at a filtered list. So you can see this is going to pull up my current open leads, and I can see just a quick list here. Everything you see when we start looking at this, at the lead data, we would absolutely work with you to define any custom data elements that you want to track, right? So I know things like obviously maybe the number of patients or the number of beds, how many of those beds are full, at the moment or whatever. So we can absolutely, help capture any additional custom data that you'd like to. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that here shortly. But let's take a look at, we'll just keep picking on Deborah here. So what you see here, this is a lead record form, right? And again, fully customizable to your needs, but this is just sort of the out-of-the-box configuration. Some things I like to draw your client's attention to here would be, first off, the ability to support the sales process, and it could be multiple processes or sort of methods of engagement, right? So depending on what the opportunity is or the lead is, there might be a different process or way in which we sort of engage in the sale, right, on the sales process. And we can support multiple sales processes by use of this business process ribbon up here, okay? again, something that's customizable to each client. Okay, so we would go through, we would take your sales engagement or your sales process or processes, multiple, and discuss, the stages and things and activities and tasks and steps that are conducted at each stage. This typically will run from the entire length of the engagement, right? So it'll start at the lead stage where we're qualifying a lead, right, and working with that Deborah at that new facility just to find out if she has expectations, that we can provide her a solution for, and if she does, then we're capturing just the initial information to qualify this, and I'm going to show you in a moment how we can convert this to an opportunity and a prospect record for that facility. So, but in any case, the strength in the solution here is that you have this business process flow that's going to guide your users through a set process, and it doesn't have to be a sales process. It could be a customer onboarding process. So during our initial call with Mike, we talked about onboarding, and there's lots of activities and tasks and things that are going on when we've already maybe received a contract or an agreement from a new facility, but we need to onboard them, right? There's lots of activities and things going on. So for a lot of clients, we'll sort of dovetail the onboarding process in with this sales engagement process, right? So at the very end, we kick off the onboarding series of steps, right? And that might send, one other thing this brings in is the ability to automate some steps and maybe automate some notifications or create some tasks for other users to complete. I noticed that you guys, or I remember Mike was telling us that you are currently using, I think was it Monday.com? Is that right?
Yes.
So yeah, we're using, right. Yeah. So you're using Monday.com for that onboarding process right now. That goes away. You would not need that at all. We can mimic everything and basically, fulfill any of the capabilities it was doing with task management. So, and what's nice about it is you could do it from like a template approach if you wanted to, where, as soon as we closed an opportunity, we won the business, and we wanted to kick off onboarding, we could set the system up to where it would create the tasks automatically based on, whatever we set initially, kind of like a template. We could set that up and it would fire and create the task and assign it to the users automatically in the background. And then when they come in, maybe we give them an onboarding dashboard type of experience where, they log in and they go to their onboarding dashboard and it's set up in sort of a series of stages for the onboarding process, so that they can kind of follow the progression for the, for onboarding any customer. All that is possible with these business process flows and workflow automation, right? So I definitely don't think you would need to worry about Monday.com going forward. Any questions on that before I keep moving?
Nope, go ahead.
I'm talking a lot, so I like to stop for questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, I guess just something on the lead record specifically and some of the value that, it gets from, marketing efforts. We didn't talk much about, what you all do for marketing or how you, acquire these new leads that your, biz dev reps are following up on.
Right. So, and you guys have been around, so, the whole description of lead is something that's unique in every organization. So I just recorded what you said. I mean, what you're describing as leads in a lot of instances are not actually leads. They're really a prospect list. But for us, a lot of our work is very, the nature of this business is unfortunately quite door-to-door oriented. And so the bulk community of opportunity or leads, as is used in this description, is really the assisted living and skilled nursing homes in our current 5-state marketing area. And as we add more states, we'll certainly add more. So part of the vision would be that is the bulk database, so to speak, of opportunity or leads. And then I do like the process of, once it's qualified, it gets moved into an opportunity, so we can change vernacular, because my goal is to be as out of the box as possible. And Jason, I didn't share, but I have a long history and a hideous experience with sugar. And part of the reason I think our experience was so awful is because we over customized it and it fell over constantly. So I don't really like hearing about customization capability because it turned into a very negative experience. So I'm more curious about hearing what the system does without a big quotient of customization. So I'm with you. We're rolling. It's good. I would just keep going.
Right. So just to respond to that real quick, I was certified on Sugar for 5 years. I worked with it quite a bit, and I can tell you that with Sugar, your customizations are a little more code heavy. You sort of need to really do much configuration or customization. You kind of have to get under the hood, shall we say? However, everything I'm showing you right now, none of this would use any code or anything extensive. This is all just using these basic tools that are like WYSIWYG type tools to configure. So, like for example, the ribbon at the top, that's stuff that we configure unique for every client, right? So the questions and things that they cover are different. So, all right. So we have our lead record here, and again, we've talked with Deborah. And we want to, progress the opportunity or progress this to an opportunity. We talked with her. It sounds like it's a legitimate business opportunity when we move forward. So much like you probably experienced in the past with, being able to sort of qualify a lead and generate an opportunity from it. We have you can see at the very top here, we have a couple of action buttons, controls here. We have a qualify and disqualify button. So if we qualify this lead, it's going to go ahead and progress this to an opportunity. It's also going to create a prospect record for ABC facility here. And it's going to add Deborah as a new contact to the database, right? So it's going to do all three of those things as soon as I hit the button. If I disqualify it, as you can imagine, what that means, it just means that maybe there's not an opportunity there. It's not going to delete the lead, just in case Deborah comes back later and maybe there is an opportunity at that point. So if I click disqualify, I can also capture a lost reason. Or a disqualification reason, you might say, right? Now, so I'm going to go ahead and hit qualify. Just kind of keep following along the process here. This is, by the way, any of the activity that we would have been in this. I did this for a reason to show you. I'm sorry, I meant to mention this is that we do have duplicate detection rules that are configurable in Dynamics 365, so that we can make sure that folks aren't putting in a lot of duplicate data. If so, we have ways to flag that. Right now, it's just basing on a phone number or an email address or the name. So, and right now I have it allowed to progress. So you can disable that so that they can't. But just wanted to point out the duplicate detection system there. So the next thing we're going to see will be our opportunity record. So for the user experience, they were just on the lead. They had talked with Deborah. They're ready to progress it. Oh, did we lose Mike?
He hung up his phone, but he's still there. Keep going.
Okay, I'll wait a second.
No, you're all right. Keep going.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm on.
There he is. Okay.
Yeah.
So from the user experience, they were working with the lead, talking with Deborah, really progress. So hitting qualify, they've now been moved to an opportunity stage. So some of this might be familiar, Tom. So you can see. My process ribbon here is updated. I've moved past the qualification stage. I moved into development. And again, you mentioned the vernacular and being able to sort of customize some of that to maybe fit more of what you guys like to use. And that's absolutely, 100%, possible. Some clients don't even like to call them opportunities. Maybe they want to call them deals. So we can edit the vernacular and the terminology that you see in here without issue. That's pretty common, actually. So you can see that now we've entered the development stage, and on the left you can see what it did here. It's created an account record, a prospect for ABC facility. So if I wanted to, I could actually click on anything you see in blue. Obviously, is a hyperlink that'll take you somewhere. So in this case, if I want to go take a look at the ABC facility, I could certainly do that. So you can see how it created a new prospect record for ABC facility. This is where, perhaps when I was on the lead, I entered maybe the number of beds this facility has, right? We could have, if we had captured it on the lead, obviously it would have carried over it would have carried over to the account record, right? So you wouldn't have had to enter that twice.
All right.
Go ahead with it. Okay, good. I didn't know if there was a question. So back to our opportunity. So if we go back, I'm going to finish on our opportunity here. So we're working with Deborah now in terms of how we're handling documentation and contracts, generating quotes. We discussed that briefly with Mike. It sounded like what you will likely do, at least in the short term, is what you would maybe continue to use some of your the same contract templates and documents that you have now, and maybe just attach those to the opportunity. We do have the ability, obviously, because of our tie-in with Microsoft Word and Excel. If it's something that you would like to generate those documents, from CRM, as maybe there's a contract template or a proposal template or some type of documentation that needed to convey to the client. We a lot of times will configure those for each customer so that they can generate that from the system. Because it's Word, it makes it a lot easier to manage. But I wanted to draw attention here to the middle. The reason why I ask is this is what the experience might be for those users. So in the middle, you have this timeline grid. Okay, so the timeline serves a couple of purposes to the user. Number one, it's going to show any call or meeting history. It's going to show any email history that you might be capturing, right? So as we go through that, and let's say we want to add a phone call, schedule a phone call, or we wanted to create or add a meeting, because of our tie-in with Outlook, any of our phone calls or appointments that we schedule in CRM will sync over to our Outlook, right? To sync with our Outlook calendar. Sorry, I didn't mean to click on that all the way. So any of our any of our calls or meetings would be synced between the two calendars. Obviously, emails that I would receive, from this facility, maybe from Deborah, I could archive to the opportunity as well. So all users would have access to that. But jumping back to what I said a moment ago, if we had an attachment, so contract for review or something like that, contracts, I could just add some notes there. But if I add an attachment, you see this little paper clip here. So I'll just browse out and I could grab a document here and attach it. Now that's the experience, the end user experience for attaching documents as notes. But I could also, if I was connected to SharePoint, the experience would be slightly different. There would be a little document tab up here where they could browse to that document tab and upload the document there. It would actually be stored in SharePoint. Okay.
Jason, we're using DocuSign. This business is driven with contracting, and so contracts are presented for signature, and so we typically put them into DocuSign to drive that.
Oh yeah, not a problem. We've implemented the DocuSign connector many times, so
Okay.
that's not a problem.
Okay.
So if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to explain that. But the way that would work is you would set up you probably already have your document templates then, right? Set up in DocuSign.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a little exercise that we go and we associate those templates with the opportunity. In other words, we map the data, that needs to be, filled into the contract, or any data that you do want to come over from, the Dynamics opportunity. And then the experience for the user is, they're on the opportunity and when they're ready to send that contract, this is added to the menu. It says get signatures, right? And so when they click that initiates, the kickoff to prepare and send that document, or in your case contract, out for electronic signature. So it's a pretty straightforward user experience. What's nice about it too is you can see this here is that the document transaction history, right? So in other words, when it was signed, when it was sent, signed, delivered, and all that, we sort of track that history, if you will, from within Dynamics, right?
Okay.
So the user, this is the older CRM interface, but you can see how it's tracking the history of that document, right? So pretty straightforward. Same thing here. This is the old interface, but it's the same experience now. Same concept.
Okay.
Okay. So that won't be a problem. And just because of time, I want to make sure we had a chance to show you some of the what I call facility management feature with the schedule board. So I'm gonna, if there's any questions on tracking a lead and an opportunity, recording some of our activities, I was gonna maybe move over to show you that. And because we had an hour today, if we need an additional, half hour, an hour, I'm more than happy to schedule an additional follow-up session and to focus on some specifics if we'd like to. So just keep that in mind if we don't get to see it today.
Okay.
All right. But again, just to kind of wrap this before I jump over, again, your sales team would be engaged with that facility or that contact through the sales engagement. This is walking through, all the way. For again, just to help with consistency's sake, a lot of the actions and activities that you do in this ribbon, it's just simple, visual cues that yes, that was completed, yes, that was completed. We can set this up to where those are required too. So they can't just kind of go in here and just check a bunch of boxes or whatever. They have to actually make sure they've completed a task before they move on, right? So that can be configured, again, this whole thing is configured to the client's process. So
and Jason, is there some sort of calculator, like in this example, it's showing budget amount. So how is the opportunity valued?
Well, it depends on the client. So, if it's sometimes clients will do it as like a monthly subscription concept. Sometimes if it's like a subscription, or if it's an annual, sort of annualized value, right? It just really depends, because I know you're providing services, so I'm assuming you don't have a lot of product necessarily that you're selling, right?
Well, there's no product and service, but there are unit economics that I would want to incorporate into this, so that, for example, if a seller puts in that there are, X, that the census of the facility is X, I'd like it to calculate the value of that opportunity based on our unit economics.
Yes, we can certainly do that. The other, as an example, this is something similar we just recently did. A client had 7 different lines of business, and we set this up so that on every opportunity, those 7 lines of business are outlined on the opportunity, whether they're actually positioning that service or not. It would be like 0%. So what he wanted to do is he wanted to see the makeup of that dollar amount percentage-wise across his 7 lines of business, right? So we actually set it up to where it'll take the dollar amount, it'll total it, and then it'll tell you what the percentage is per service line. So that's kind of nice.
Right? What I'm asking is, for him, where did the dollar amount come from?
The dollar amount was it was an annualized sum of the value of the contract, but spread across the 7 product lines. So if it's a $100,000 deal, and he has 7 or 4 of the 7 product lines, had services quoted or proposed, then it would have been like, 25,000 for each of the product lines. Right?
I understand that part. I want to go back to, so if I'm hearing you correctly, the seller or someone somewhere was deciding the value of the deal, that there's nothing in the CRM that calculated the value of the deal based on any kind of metrics that the seller might enter.
No. So we have the ability for the seller to enter, a dollar amount for a service, right? So in other words, they have to estimate. So your sales team does estimate the.
No, they don't. I don't want them to. That's what I'm asking you. So let me try to state it more clearly. They are going to enter the number of potential patients, and I want the system to calculate the value of that opportunity based on what we program the system to do. And so, for example, the value of a patient for primary care versus the value of a patient for mental health, et cetera. So we have these unit economics that I'd like to have in the background. And then if they were on the opportunity tab, for example, they would just be putting in, they would fill they provide the numbers that we're asking for, which are very basic numbers, but then they don't have the ability to determine the dollar value. I want a calculator to do that automatically. Gotcha.
Okay. So what you're describing, so basically you have, you have a unit rate, and then you would have a quantity. You want them to fill in the quantity. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So in this case,
So what
quantity
you're
would be
describing-
number of expected patients to be consented. And if I'm looking at your go ahead, tell me what you wanted to say.
So what I'm showing you here is the product catalog. Now, again, it's for product or services. LBMC, we use it for services all the time. And what we would do is we would define any custom quantities or attributes that we would need to be calculated there. But out of the box, because you mentioned out of the box, you want to focus as much as you can on that. We do have the way to force a system calculated, system calculation rather than allow the user to provide the amounts, right? So we set these up. We call them price lists or rate sheets. So what we would do is we could set up one or multiple rate sheets. Like do perhaps have different rates based on the facility type or rates based
type
on
of service. It's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we would define those as price lists or rate sheets. And that way we would, capture those in the system. And then as the user, the sales user would be building the opportunity, they would just be adding those services here with a preset price list. They would not be able to edit. We would set it, just not allow them to edit the price. All they would do would be to enter the quantity. So that experience would be pretty straightforward. And to your point, they would not be able to, we would not give them permissions to be able to edit the pricing. So
just take me across those headings. Sorry, Jason, because we're going to run out of time. Take me across the headings. What is product name?
It'd be the name of the service in your case.
Okay, and then the properties?
So properties allow you to define selections that have to be made for that particular product, like color, size, weight, whatever it is. If there's unique properties that you're trying to capture for that product. A great example would be like a T-shirt. They come in extra large, they come in blue, or red. So those are properties. You make selections about that particular line item.
And then unit?
We can define multiple units of measure. So eaches, cases of 12, that's a unit of measure. And then that's your.
So Jason, before we go further, I guess the question I'm going to ask is, we're a service business, and I get all these references to products. Do you have examples of service companies or versions of Dynamics that have been applied to service organizations where a lot of what you're just describing, yes, we can manipulate it to mean certain things, but it sounds much more that the experience and the tool is more common for products.
Well, we are LBMC. We do drink our own Kool-Aid. So we use Dynamics across 8 different businesses, about 600 or so users, and all of them sell services.
Great.
So we all use this.
So let's just try to use that vernacular, okay? Because we're a service company, so it'll just be more helpful if we think about services and not products and colors. Go ahead.
Sure, I get it. So, again, you mentioned the vernacular and the terminology. Yes, it is geared towards somebody selling a widget, but that does, you have to kind of look past that sometimes and understand that these labels really mean nothing. We can call them anything we want if it helps with the vernacular. So, but in terms of selling services, the way LBMC, the way we do it internally, is that we have licensing components, right? We have licensing elements, and then we have our service elements, implementation, support, network engineering. All of our departments within LBMC Technology Solutions have our own set of products, i.e. services, right? That is in the product catalog in here. So I'll just branch off real quick. This is where we would set this up, okay? So we have the ability to put all of our services, all of our, products, if there are any, in here. And then we have our rate sheet. So for us, our rate sheets are our hourly rate for those services. So, for example, a CRM implementation, our consulting rate is $200 an hour. So in here, I would have those services outlined, and I would have the rate sheet defined for that, right? Same thing with all of our other business units. So that's how we're currently tracking them. So, and Jonathan can tell you firsthand, the way we would manage that opportunity is that we would come in here, and he would be able to. I'm sorry, hang on a second. Let me go back to our. see, we were working on, I literally, oh, it's because I was on a different tab. All right, so I've got so many tabs open up here, I got the wrong one. For his experience is, you know, they add the services here, right? For each of the service lines that he's be quoting, right? So like he's quoting a CRM opportunity, you know, he would come in here, he would add those line items for the services here. And then he would add a row for in our case, licensing, because obviously there's a licensing component to what we do. So all of those are together, and then we have an integration set up with Intact, right? So the way that works is, ours is a project level and contract level integration, such that when we close the opportunity in Dynamics, it creates a contract and subsequent project record in Intact, right? So we do all of our, do you use contracts in Intact? Do you do contract billing? Oh, you still there, Tom? Mike?
Yep, I'm here.
Do you use Intact for contract billing? You bill out of contracts?
We don't bill against contracts.
Okay. So currently that's, you know, we do use the contracts, you know, functionality in Intact. So we are also, you know, a large Intact user ourselves, right? So we use a combination of Dynamics 365 and Intact to manage our, you know, but obviously our sales, but then also our contract and billing through the contract. But all that flows together. So as the users are adding these services here, it's inserting the rows into the contract over in Intact, and that's how it's billed. Just to kind of paint a picture, so to speak. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, again, I know the vernacular setup is, you know, like a product, you know, sort of architecture to it, but we haven't had an issue with that internally. You know, like I said, we put services in and, like, you know, licensing component. But the one thing I wanted to show you, just to kind of, you know, further help you guys understand how this might be adapted to what you guys are doing here. This is an example of what I did is I took the field service, the standard field service app. All I did was just rename it and just give me an example, like we call it facility management, maybe, right? This would be like your facility management app. And this would contain, you know, or give the operations folks access to schedule board, to the appointments, and the ability to manage your resources, right? Your resources are your technicians and physicians. So the way this works is, you know, you would take your physicians and your technicians, anyone that goes on those appointments or is on sites at the facilities, you would enter them into the system here, or import them, of course, and you would set their skills up, like what it is that they're supposed to be doing, right? And the way that the schedule board works, and again, this is not intended to be a field service demo for you. I just want to kind of show you some screens to help kind of paint a picture that, hey, this is, you know, certainly able to help you track your facilities, you know, track the appointments, track your resources, and then we could come back and do an actual detail level demo for you on just this piece. But I thought it'd be nice to see it up front. So this is an example of, I'm still in the same app. It's the original field service app. So this is our schedule board, right? So once we have an appointment set up, right? So we have our appointment. I think in here in this screen it still says work order, but it's essentially an appointment, right? So we would have our appointments that we need to schedule. So the Village at Bellevue, you know, we've got Nancy or Bertie that we need to schedule an appointment for. They need maybe their annual physical, right? So I've already set one up to kind of show you what this looks like. So if we looked at the work order or appointment, I should say, excuse me. Let me see. I lost my screen here. Oh, that's right. I'm going to do it here for you. I was looking in the related screen and I created a tab for you so it's easier to see. So in the Village of Bellevue, and this would be true of any of the facility records, I could go and take a look at any current appointments set for that facility, right? So in this case, I have an appointment created for Bertie, let's say, and I can see that it's open and it's currently scheduled. It is a checkup, and I don't know if you really are going to be capturing this in here, since that's getting more into the the HIPAA stuff. That's at least PHI. So I don't know if that's considered necessarily PHI or not. But anyway, maybe we track it at a higher level or something. But you can see that we'd be able to capture that appointment in here, and then on the schedule board, you can see. Well, that's the tab I was on a second ago. You have the ability to see those open appointments down here, and you literally can just drag and drop those into our schedule board for each doctor, right? We do have the way to let it auto assign appointments. So if it's something where it's like, hey, I just need to find the closest physician or technician to that facility and just auto assign it based on their availability, you can do that. Or the operations folks, the people that are managing the scheduling, would be able to take a look at at a glance at those work orders, and then do a filter. You can actually do a filter search. Let's say that I need a physician that's close by that can do some type of exam, right? Or has a certain skill that's been associated with his or her record over here, right? This is their resource record. So that's where the skills are tracked, and we have the ability to tie in the skills and their location into that scheduling process, right? So if you can, it's the same concept as like a field service technician, right? I have an issue with a piece of equipment, but I need to find the right technician that has the skill to fix that equipment that's close by, right? So this system is built that way, and so I think based on this conversation with Mike, I think that would sort of fit your paradigm pretty well. You don't have to use the mobile dispatch feature per se, where you're tracking the truck and doing geospatial stuff or geolocation and all that. That's stuff that is available as part of the solution, but you wouldn't necessarily have to turn it on. So
Jason, just for a minute on that. So the system, where is the AI? And what I mean by that is, so we can load in our providers and their home address. Everybody is field based, so it would be their home addresses. So then, how does the system, from a scheduling standpoint, so we know where they are, where they live, and we know where the facility or the patient is. And so you're saying that that within this system, there's the capability of performing this matching process.
That's right. So already baked into the solution, again, getting back to, as a company, I'm trying to find the closest resource in my company, to that customer to take care of their issue, right? So out of the box, it's designed to capture the location of your resource and the location of the customer, and do a best case matching between that resource and that customer.
Interesting. Okay, good.
Yeah. So again, we'll do a full. I just wanted to kind of give you a taste of this, just kind of to let you know that it's here. It's in the system. But this might help a little bit as well. So this is the announcing the release of the enhanced schedule board. This was in February, I think, here. So you can see this is a real look at what the schedule board looks like when it's actually populated. So you can see I still got my resources over on the right. It's just sort of a status tracking of the appointments, right? So anyway, we'll do a full demo on that. But this does have the geospatial stuff, so it can show you like where the physician is, where the customer is, right?
Okay.
So anyway, it's there. We just have to show it to you. We'll prepare to do a demo for you on that. Also, before we, just to kind of give you a few things to think about from a mobile standpoint, there's the work order, or the ability to track these appointments / work orders. There is a full-scale field mobile app that, if we wanted those technicians and physician resources to have the ability to maybe log the time that they're at a facility, you could do that. I know you probably have the other application that you're doing that for, or maybe it's not something you're worried about, but there's the potential to do that. And then of course the Outlook app. This is something we mentioned earlier on. This does give users the ability to retrieve and work with data from CRM from within Outlook, right? So not only can they, when they receive an email or a message from, facility manager, let's say, they can archive that email, but they could also take a look at any relevant data regarding that particular customer or account, or they could just arbitrarily look up information about a particular customer, right? So through this app here, they're able to do that. So like in this case, Allie's popped up. She's a VP, and I can see that there's some activity coming up, like what recently occurred, and then what the next activity is, interaction with her, right?
Yeah, Jason, unfortunately, I do have another call. So I guess my next question, Mike, I don't want to cut you off either. I'm sure you've got some questions as well. But how do we get to the place where we get some sort of idea of what cost looks like?
Certainly. So Jonathan and I can begin working on that for you. I think we would need to have an idea of your user makeup, right? So how many would be, managing this from the sales engagement standpoint, right? What users fit that role? And then as far as operations, working in here, managing the scheduling and the appointments and the scheduling and working with the resources. So we need to have an idea of users that would sort of be fitting that use case or role, right? And then if you have any additional use cases, for example, like executive users that want to get in there and might just need like read-only access, that's another thing we would need to or like to know, because there is a sort of a read-only type light user that a lot of clients like to use for like executives or leadership that just want to get in there and look at dashboards, kind of get a more of a high level understanding of what's going on. And of course, being able to drill down as well. But anyway, so we have a team member level license that's a good option for those folks.
Okay.
So just user counts and your user groups, and we can work on an estimate for you on that, on the licensing.
Yeah, and so just so I'm clear, for the scheduling, you need some users, but we're gonna have a lot more people actually they're scheduling for. So do you need that number as well? Like just so we have it, there's 350 providers. We're probably gonna need a fraction of that, maybe like 20 or maybe 40 people who are actually gonna do the scheduling. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Right. No, it would just be the folks that are. Yes, sir. Yeah, we would not the resources. Unless they're using the mobile app, I don't believe they have to have a license. Right? I'll double check that, but you wouldn't need a license for every physician unless they're using the mobile. They need access to the mobile app, which it doesn't. I don't think that's what you're after. At least that's not what I heard. So I think that would be a requirement.
Okay, Tom, do you want to give some high level?
Yeah,
numbers?
I mean, if we just talk in really high numbers, Jason. So from a sales user standpoint. Let's just use the number 13. And then for the scheduling users, as Mike described them, just as a starting point, so you've got something to point to, let's say 20.
Okay.
Let's the executive user, which I've listed as a light user and could be read only, let's set that aside for a moment. But if there's a standard price for that or cost, just include that without knowing, it's going to be 6 or less. Guys, I'm sorry. I do have to jump to this other call.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you for
appreciate your time. Yeah, thank you guys.
All right.